Me. Greetings and salutations from beautiful Greenville, North Carolina. Welcome back to my channel. So today we are doing another manga sit down and read. This time we added a little bit of challenge, put just a little bit of spice in it. You know what I'm saying? Made it a little bit more difficult. And so with that said, we are going to try to power through groups of threes. So I am taking 3 volumes of 4 different series, even though it should have probably been 3 different series, but I did 4 different series because I got to get through this backlog. Okay. It's a lot of manga here that I need to read. Okay. So let's go ahead and do this. So we read them, we talk about them, and we rate them. Now this time the rating system is going to be a little bit different. It is going to be out of 10, but I think we're going to add a little bit of flavor to it this time. So it tastes a little bit better when I serve it up to you. You feel me? You feel what I'm saying? But anyway, let's talk about the books that we're going to be reading today. Now, the first 3 books that we're going to be reading is Please Go Home, Miss Akutsu or Miss Akutsu, volumes 5, 6, and 7. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you I already read volume 5 a while ago, but I kind of forgot what was going on in the book. So it's a good kind of jumping off point for me to read the 2 newer volumes that I have of this, but really excited to get into this. We also read 3 volumes of Akane-Banashi, volumes 1, 2, and 3. Super excited to get into this one because I've only ever heard really good things about this particular series. We are also doing the first 3 volumes of Nina the Starry Bride, another one that I've heard nothing but good things about and I'm ready to dig into. And last but not least, our only omnibus, which is Your Lie in April, which I have heard once again nothing but good things about it, other than it being a pretty sad story. So I've been waiting a while to get into this one. So these are the 4 manga that we are going to be plowing through, we're going to talk about, and we're going to give them a rating. So with that said, remember, if you enjoy what I am doing on this channel, if you enjoy this fire content, go ahead and click that subscribe button. You know what I'm saying? Turn them post notifications on so you know when I drop something new. Let me know that you fox with your boy the long way. You feel me? Anyway, enough rambling from me. Let's go ahead and do some reading. Okay, we've got 3 volumes of Please Go Home, Miss Akutsu, volumes 5, 6, and 7. Let's go ahead and dive right in. Now, this is a series that I have been reading, and I'm pretty sure I've read volume 5 already, but I want to read it again just so I can get caught up and understand where we're at in the story for these 3. So let's read them, and then we'll rate them. Okay, just finished reading Please Go Home, Miss Akutsu, volumes 5, 6, and 7. And I did have to cheat a little bit and take some notes because, I mean, obviously this is a lot of manga to digest. Now, this one is an ongoing series, but I think it is wrapping up relatively soon, or maybe it's done now. But when I first got into the series, it was ongoing. With that said, this is a very fun teasing manga. The whole point of it is the main characters basically tease each other, mostly Miss Akutsu or Riko. I think her name is Riko. Yeah, Riko basically teases Oyama. Oyama is the main guy's character's name or whatever. He's a little bit of a little gloomy, you know, that kind of vibe. He lives alone for reasons because, you know, parents are never around in manga for some reason when it comes to these high schoolers. Please tell me how they're living this life because my parents were always around when I was high school. They literally went to everything, especially my mom. My mom was always there. And mind you, we'll get into this a little bit later. His mom actually comes to his apartment from time to time and just sees this other teenage girl hanging out there and is super cool with it. In fact, it's kind of rooting for the rom-com. With that said, Miss Akutsu or Riko is definitely a delinquent who pretty much sees an opportunity to terrorize this man by pulling up to his crib and just staying there in perpetuity. I mean, she doesn't really live there, but she basically does because she comes there every single day and pretty much doesn't leave. She basically basically lives there. So by the time you get to volume 5, 6, and 7, that's what's happening. Now, with that said, it does pretty much follow the same format, volume after volume, chapter after chapter, just these different situations of Riko teasing Oyama over and over again, finding different ways to tease him. And of course, she's a high schooler, so, you know, I'm gonna put this in the frame. Okay, she's a high schooler. I'm saying this is how she's written, but she's kind of hot. She's quite voluptuous, and they accentuate that in this book. That is probably why I'm not flipping through any of the pages right now. Though there is no explicit nudity, they go up against the line about as far as you can go. I do want to give you a little warning about that. If you are not into the ecchi stuff, stay away from this book. I kind of like boobies. Not gonna lie, will not sit here and pretend to be a better man than I am. I do like boobies, but more than that, they do find interesting ways to continue to make all of this horniness seem more wholesome than it has any business being. Now, by the time we get to these few volumes, they're not in a relationship, but they are pushing to that at 5,000 miles an hour, though neither one is quite ready to admit how they feel about the other. You know how these things go. Where this book really excels is the fact that they continue to find ways to make their dynamic interesting. I have no idea how they continue to find ways to make their dynamic feel refreshing is probably not the right set of words to describe it, but definitely make it feel interesting and like something that you want to continually read. Now, another thing that's cool about the story is that it doesn't explicitly just focus on our two main characters. They do have a lot of really good supporting characters that really start to shine in these later books. And I think probably the one that shines the most is Riko's mom, who shows up quite a bit over these three volumes, and is just absolutely hilarious in how she interacts with both Riko and Oyama. Also, how she is kind of viewing the little thing that they have going on, and how I would not describe her exactly as a neglectful mother, but she is 1000% letting Riko get away with a lot more things than most parents would. And of course, that's because plot, but also, you know, they happen to be very much so alike in the way that they work. They also introduce Riko's dad, who is almost just like Oyama. So it's very interesting to see that dynamic kind of mirrored in the later kind of volumes when he's introduced in, you know, when she's even talking about how she ended up with him, which is the exact same way Riko ends up with Oyama, or how they ended up on the trajectory that they're on. Also, the landlady's daughter is another one who steals the show, and she's been around for quite a while actually in the series, but she gets a lot of tick in these books, and all she does is basically listen in on what they're doing, because I mean, quite frankly, she's a creep that's obsessed with the rom-com aspect of their relationship and literally treats it like it's a rom-com that she's watching on TV. It is so stupid. She's literally hanging outside listening to the door all day or all night long trying to hear what they're doing. So yeah, the very interesting character. And I think that's the charm of this series, these quirky characters. Also, I forgot to mention Riko's delinquent friends also play kind of a major role in these books as well. And they're funny and they're cute and they're kind of relatable, even though they're delinquents. And, you know, even they're kind of like, look, man, why don't you go ahead and get with this boy? This is pretty much your boyfriend. So really, it's the dynamics, it's the characters, it's not necessarily the situation itself. And it's also very interesting how they're able to do so much with so few settings. It is pretty much the school and his apartment, and then occasionally they'll go to the store or something like that. And there's this one particular situation where they're going on a school trip, and as you're, you know, reading it and leading up to it, you think that they're gonna show them on their school trip or show, you know, at least different panels of them doing different things on a school trip. Nope. It goes from them leading up to them, the little conflict about them not going going to the same place for their school trip, and then it cuts to them giving each other souvenirs from the school trip that they went to in Oyama's apartment. So it's little things like that. It's almost like it is teasing you, making you think that they're gonna go somewhere else when they're 1000% not going to. So just really cool dynamics in this particular story. Now, by no means would I call Please Go Home, Miss Akutsu brilliant. I think it is actually quite average, to be honest with you. But with that said, I do find it quite enjoyable to read, and I think if if you are into this brand of comedy and you don't mind them being high schoolers, because I think for a lot of us adults, that's the tough thing about reading, especially something as ecchi and horny as this kind of is. And it's not horny in the sense of like booty royale. It's more horny is in the sense of anything with a ton of fan service, just, that teasy fan service. If you're okay with that, I think you can get a lot of joy and enjoyment out of the story, because the characters truly are very charming and funny, and fun to kind of hang out with and see what they're going to do next. With that said, I am probably going to rate this 7 sad Marcuses out of 10. Once again, it is pretty much an average series. It's not going to be the best thing in the world that you ever read. However, I don't really see anything wrong with average. I think there is a lot of room in this world for average to exist, as long as you can get enjoyment and entertainment out of it. And I'm going to continue reading it. I mean, I'm what, 7 volumes in, so I'm going to collect this to the end. And you know what? I think this story has a ton of replay value. It's just a fun and easy read. So 7 out of 10 from Please Go Home, Miss Akutsu. Definitely think if it's a bit more niche, even if it's one of the more broad series in its niche. If you like stuff like Smoking Behind the Supermarket with You and Nakamura-san, The Uninvited Garu, I think even if you like My Dress Up Darling, you would probably find a lot of enjoyment out of this particular series, because I think it has a lot of the same fundamental story beats. So yeah, definitely enjoyed it. I think you might enjoy it if you like this kind of stuff. Oh my God, I just ate. I don't know if I'm going to make it through these next set of manga because I'm so tired. I want to take a nap and not wake up until tomorrow. But we got to do it. So our next set of manga are going to be Nina the Starry Bride, volumes 1, 2, and 3. So let's do it. Okay, so we just finished the first 3 volumes of Nina the Starry Bride, and this is about as long as I'm going to be holding these books up, because fuck that. And all I can say is, wow, what an incredible ride. What an incredible 3 volumes. So let me give you a little synopsis of the story, because it is both all kinds of fucked up, but also kind of interesting and cool. Not fucked up in like a Boys Abyss way, more of a fucked up like, damn, like this girl's having a crazy time. Anyway, so this story follows a poor girl, Nina, who's lost pretty much her entire family to a plague and is essentially sold into slavery by one of her friends who she considered her brother, and pretty much all she had left in the world, after his biological brother, and in turn, somebody else she considered a brother, dies of a illness or whatever, randomly. And this is the first 5 pages of this book. What a set off to a story. And it never falls off. Literally never falls off from that point. Now, with that said, instead of slavery, she is actually brought to the palace to impersonate a princess who died from a freak accident. As you kind of go through it, you like, maybe this wasn't a freak accident. Maybe this was a setup, which is kind of a plot thread that's left hanging so far in the 3 volumes I've read. And I just so happen to have 5, 6, and 7, but I don't have 4. So I can't find out what happens next, which is super annoying. And it's been hard for me to get volume 4. I'm just gonna order that shit from Amazon. Anyway, that's beyond the point. Now, Nina is chosen specifically because she has blue eyes. So this just so happens to be the only thing that anybody knows about this princess, because she spent a majority of her life just locked away learning how to be a priestess princess or whatever kind of customs they have there or whatever. So nobody really knew what she looked like outside of a handful of people. So basically it's very easy to replace her with someone else as long as they have these blue eyes. I mean, she's been gone so long, not even her own father knows what she looks like. Not even the king knows what she looks like. So it's pretty crazy. None of the people, nobody, only her handlers really knew, and they basically know what the demo is. They're like, yo, we have to pretend this bitch is Nina. You know what I'm saying? I'm not Nina, but I think her name was Alicia. So we need to pretend like Nina is Alicia, because if we don't, we'll probably get killed. So we gonna roll with this. So these blue eyes turn out to be a little bit of a gift and a curse for Nina. It's present her with an opportunity to exponentially change her life, but also the only reason why she's kind of stuck in this particular situation is because of her blue eyes. And you kind of find out that being a princess really ain't all it's cracked up to be. All of these royals ain't shit. All of them are terrible people. Now, she's brought in by Prince Azur, which we're gonna call Az from this point on, because that's pretty much what she calls him, AZ, not ASS. And he's the son of the king who has his own major secret that's revealed pretty early on. So I'm not even gonna bother to spoil that for you because it is a quintessential part of the story. But suffice it to say, when I found that out, my jaw dropped because there was no real lead up to this being an actual thing. Now, dude is like, I guess a little bit of an asshole, or he's like, not exactly standoffish, because you're gonna meet another prince later on in volume 3 who really is a fucking asshole. He's not even just an asshole. This dude is a fucking psychopath. Anyway, we don't even talk about him much in this review, but I just wanted to give Azur or Az a little bit of credit. He's not really completely an asshole, but he is definitely not the most friendly guy to Nina when she first comes through. He's basically like, look, bitch, I brought you to do a job, so I'm gonna need you to do this job and get married off to these people and, you know, go be the queen over here and do your duty for the sake of this nation. That's the long and short of him. He's apathetic, I guess. Now, over time, with her interactions with him, he actually really warms up to her. It happens relatively fast, but it feels natural. It doesn't feel like it's happening too fast. But by the middle of volume 1, they're starting to kind of fall in love with each other. You can definitely see them little embers burning between the two of them. And I mean, it goes full out because they actually do kiss in this one situation. I'll go ahead and give you that. Spoiler alert, they do actually kiss, and it happens more than one time. Now, how they would play that out, you know what I'm saying, if they were to stay together, how that's gonna bear out, I have no earthly idea, because technically they're brother and sister. But you're not gonna have a problem with it once all these other secrets are revealed. Anyway, moving on. Now, this is a shoujo through and through, from the art style to the romance bits of it. But I think what makes Nina the Starry Bride or what's the most interesting thing about it, I should say, is like this chess game these royals are playing with each other, right? And it's bearing out in the book. In fact, I want to say more than the romance in the first few parts of these books, or the first few parts of volume 1 and even volume 2, is really them setting the stage and putting all the pieces on the board and, you know, being, okay, this is this, this is this, this is this, and who's after who and why they're after them and their motivations, and all of that stuff is so interesting. It's doing a great job of building a world around these people and kind of revealing who they are and, you know, what they are. It's literally people you think are just flat out villains are actually not, and people that you think might actually be kind are not. They're actual villains. It is a super interesting story, and I don't want to oversell it because so much happens in the first couple of volumes, but you can tell there's so much more that's gonna happen. You can just tell. We're just at the tip of the iceberg, and it's so juicy. And let me tell you, okay, I'm a gossip girl. I love juicy. I love a big, fat, juicy piece of steak. I just love juicy, juicy drama. I won't really watch it on TV, okay? You can't get me to watch Shonda Rhimes, but you can get me to read this shit right here, because this shit is so juicy. It's just you bite into it. It just, yeah. Anyway, sorry about that. I kind of lost the plot. Anyway, So Nina is essentially stuck in between this Game of Thrones, this whole thing that's going on. I was trying not to say Game of Thrones and I said it anyway, but she's stuck in the middle of this. Basically, she falls so hard for Az. She's willing to do things that, you know, honestly don't really benefit her. She could run away from this whole situation, to be completely honest with you, and not be married off to another country to a prince who is known for being absolutely cruel, and she could just go live her life. But at the end of the day, everybody she knows is gone. As far as she's concerned, the only person she has at this point is Az, and she wants to do whatever she can to keep him safe and keep him alive. And so she's just kind of stuck between this. I'm kind of in love with this dude, but also I have to make these decisions that I don't really want to necessarily make in order to keep him alive. So very interesting kind of setup and premise. Now, this story, in my opinion at least, uses politics and romance elements to really just introduce and develop its characters in unique ways and really sets up their motivations. It's through this lens that these people are able to develop, and we could kind of see who they are, especially Nina, because Nina definitely starts off, she's not exactly weak as hell in a lot of ways because she starts off as a street kid. She has to be kind of savvy and, you know, be able to adapt. But you see this happening at the grandest scale. It's like if you were like a really good street baller and you got asked to come play in the NBA and be the #1 guy or the #1 girl for your team. You know what I'm saying? Like immediately, like you just supposed to be raw as hell immediately. And you're going up against elite talent and you have to be elite at the same time. And she's just able to adapt just like that. You know what I'm saying? She stumbles a little bit along the way, obviously, but she's just clever enough to kind of observe and plan and plot and do what it is she needs to do. And it makes me wonder how her character, because right now she's just kind of really sweet, how much her character is going to evolve throughout time and what she's going to be willing to do to accomplish her goals. And you see it play out already one time in an interaction she has with the king, which is critical. I'm not going to tell you what that is, but it is a very critical interaction. And you're like, a determined Nina is scary. So yeah, super interesting. With that said, it is not only fantastic writing, because it is a very, very well written book, keeps you on the edge of your seat, but the artwork is absolutely incredible too. The artwork is fantastic. It looks beautiful. It adapts that shoujo style, but I think it kind of finds its own footing too, where it feels unique. All the characters feel unique. I think they especially do a very good job of doing detailed clothing when they're doing these formal events and stuff like that. The clothing just looks incredibly detailed. Nina looks absolutely gorgeous in some scenes. So does Az. Az also looks pretty fucking hot in quite a few scenes too. I'm gonna give it to him. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna give it to my boy Az. I think he deserves it. You feel me? So, you know, the artwork is just absolutely incredible. Now, I've kind of beat about around the bush and I've given you a little bit, but first of all, this story is a 10 out of 10 Sad Marcus's. I would 1000% recommend this to just about anybody. I don't care if you are the girliest girl or the manliest dude, you will probably love this story. I mean, it has really broad appeal, okay? It will definitely appeal to anybody. And if you're not gonna read it, there is an anime. I haven't watched the anime yet. I'm trying to get to a certain point in the manga before I watch the anime. I find now that I read a lot of my manga, because I used to be an anime only type guy anyway myself, but now that I read a lot of manga, there is something about most stories. Because there are some that I think about, like Oshinoko. I love Oshinoko, but I think Oshinoko is better as a anime than it is as a manga. Not to take any away, because it's pretty much shot for shot, word for word, but I just think it's one of those things you have to see moving. But for the most part, most things I always end up enjoying the manga more than the anime, whether I watch the anime first or I read the manga first. And I feel like it's probably going to be the same for Nina, so I would definitely probably read this, but at the very least watch the anime. It looks like it might be good. But 10 out of 10. This is absolutely incredible. If you've been thinking about picking up this series, please do. Please do, because this thing is great, and I would love for the anime, even though I've never seen it, to get a season 2, just so more people can have love for Nina the Starry Bride that I do, because Nina the Starry Bride is jumping out the gym. It is jumping out the gym. It is firing on all cylinders. pick this up, buy it, rent it. I don't know how you read your manga. I like physical volumes. And buy the physical volumes, okay? If you don't like physical volumes, get the digital ones. Read it on some app, read it on Manga Decks. I don't care how you read it, but you should definitely read this 1000%. So, how are we going to follow up something as incredible as Nina and the Starry Bride? Well, hopefully it will be with Akane-Banashi Volume 1, 2, and 3. Now, I've heard fantastic things about these books, and I'm looking forward to digging in and finding out a little bit more about this particular story. I think it's going to be a banger though, so let's get into it. Okay, just finished the first 3 volumes of Akane-Banashi, and wow. Just wow. That's all I can say. This story is absolutely incredible. Imagine taking the shonen formula, the tragedy or something happens, then training arc, then doing something, and the character is raw as hell at it, and apply it to this kind of very niche Japanese storytelling art form, and you get Akane-Banashi. Just an absolutely incredible and refreshing take on storytelling. It was really, really great. Now, this follows Akane after her father, who was a promising Rokagu Gaoka. I don't know, I'm pronouncing that all fucked up, but anyway, you get the point. Now, this is a Japanese storyteller. Oftentimes the stories are kind of funny, or sometimes they can be emotional, but mostly they're funny. And it's a particular way of storytelling. It's very steeped in like tradition, and some of that tradition can be kind of rigid. So there's a lot that goes along with it, and that's why I think it makes for an interesting method of storytelling. But he is essentially expelled from this very prestigious school that he's been studying in for pretty much his whole life. I mean, he has really struggled to get to this point, and is basically past this thing that will make him the top of the top or fail, and he's riding everything on this, and he pretty much gets expelled after he does his thing. And so it puts a huge damper on the family, to the point where he pretty much quits doing the profession and goes and gets a regular job. And you know what? Thankfully, he didn't die or something like tragic happens to him in that way. It's just mostly his thing he's been working for his whole life, the thing that he has poured his entire soul into, his art, is pretty much stripped away from him. And so Akane decides that she's going to pick up the mantle to prove that her dad is raw as fuck at what it is that he do. This nigga is just raw as hell. You know what I'm saying? So, she pretty much decides to go to his master and, let me study under you. And it turns out that Akane is actually pretty fucking raw at this. She's pretty talented at it. And I think what this story does well with Akane, their protagonist, is she does have some inherent talent at this. She's kind of born with it, but it's also implied that she also works very hard towards it. From studying her dad and watching him do it, and that's where she got her love for it and her passion, for it, but also from her working really hard in her studies. But she does have a lot of really, really natural talent at it as well. And so basically the master decides to take her under his wing or whatever and teach her basically like off the books, because he doesn't really want her family to find out about it, because he's kind of like, after the humiliating defeat that your dad had, I know they're going to be apprehensive about it. And also I don't really want it to get around that I'm teaching his daughter or whatever, just because it will put a damper on her future career. So it's kind of a cool little master sensei setup early in it, right? But you also get this look into the world of, Japanese storytelling. I'm not going to keep trying to say the name because I'm going to fumble it. So we might as well say this particular type of Japanese storytelling, and kind of how rigid it can be and how traditionalist it can be, and how Akane is trying to walk this really fine line of following the traditions and respecting the traditions, while also kind of breaking the mold or whatever. And she's not the only one like that. There's a lot of young ones, in it, doing it. And you find out kind of like the motivations of why her father was expelled from school, and you learn a lot more about how this particular Japanese storytelling works. It's really cool. And I think what also works really well in this is the characters, the supporting characters, from the masters down to the other students and other people in this world. It's just very interesting, and it really draws you into it. Even the way they depict the actual storytelling is very compelling. You know what I'm saying? Because they do this mix of showing the crowd and how the crowd is reacting to it, and like the way that they draw the characters or whatever, them making facial expressions to show them changing their voice, how the lettering is done, even how they do these cut to scenes of how it would be visualized or what the story kind of looks. So they use this really kind of complex storytelling to tell the story, but to also push the competitive nature of the profession and to push how it's affecting the crowd. It's just really cool because you get really sucked in, and it's almost like you can see these stories being told. So it's just incredibly well written. This might be like one of the best mangas that I'm reading currently. I read these 3 volumes and then I went ahead and read part of the 4th volume because the way volume 3 ends, it leaves you kind of on a little bit of cliffhanger. So it just really draws you in and makes you want to keep reading, and you get really invested into just about every character that you're introduced to that plays any modicum of a role. And just really you get invested in Akane's journey because you kind of understand where she's coming from, but you also get all these other perspectives of why people would think she's kind of arrogant or she's too touted or why she needs to get knocked down a peg. And it's not even that she's super arrogant or anything. She's just very, very driven. But you can also see from her own actions and also being able to see what she's doing from other people's perspectives. I could understand why why people feel like she needs to get knocked down a peg, even if I don't necessarily agree, because I get to see her internal monologue, or I get to see her struggle, or I got to see what was going on with her from the very beginning. So really, really great series. Really great series. I'm going to continue reading this. I recommend it you, and what's so good about this series too is I think of all the books that I'm reading for this, I think surprisingly, for it to be talking about a very niche topic, this book has the most broad appeal because of the way it approaches storytelling, because of the way it approaches its characters. It just makes it where whether you care about the actual topic, you'll get so invested in the characters and the way that these characters are portrayed and the way their journeys are portrayed that you can't turn away. And it's doing this thing with the shonen tropes and applying it to like something so, I don't want to say mundane because it is exciting, but it's not 2 people throwing hands, you know what I'm saying? Or a group of people throwing hands, or training to use magic in a way that nobody's ever seen. It's just these people getting on stage and trying to rock a crowd. And that's so dope. It reminds me of like 8 Mile or something like that. Like I feel like something like 8 Mile has broad appeal because whether you like the art of rap, the storytelling, the journey, everything that led Eminem to get to where he is like why you're there. And it does it a lot in that way. But it's like, you know, it can be like super competitive and you have like a training arc and you know, where she's learning stuff and you're seeing her pick up these skills from something that has nothing to do with what it is, you know, what she's trying to do. But you find all of these skills you can apply in everyday life. And it's just dope. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. You know, I gotta say, there was no putting that down. I breezed right through it. I did not feel like it was belaboring or anything. 10 out of 10. Fantastic storytelling. Great, excellent art to match the storytelling. I'm not even gonna say fantastic. Excellent art to match the storytelling. It, you know, you just, the character designs are great. Everything is hitting on all cylinders in this book. Definitely read Akane-Banashi if you are not reading it. Read it. It is a fantastic story that I think no matter what genre of manga you enjoy reading, you will enjoy this. Okay, we've been through a lot of manga so far, and now it is time to talk about the very last one of this reading session, and that's going to be Your Lie in April Omnibus 1, which is going to cover volumes 1, 2, and 3. Now, I've heard good things about this particular manga, though I have also heard it is very sad. So let's see how they execute it, at least in the first 3 volumes of this book. So let's get into it. Okay, so we just finished reading Your Lie in April, and I have some thoughts on this one, honestly. Now, I will say that it is a story that gains a lot of its momentum after volume 1, or maybe like towards the end of volume 1. I was really not that connected to the characters for the majority of the first volume. I will say that it does kind of ramp up quite a bit as you get to the end of the volume, where you feel like you need to get to volume 2. And once you get to volume 2, I think it kind of unlocks things. Now, it does quite a few things well. I think it does a great job of highlighting the childhood friendships that our characters have and kind of bouncing back and forth between our 4 main characters' perspectives. Really, 3 of them are childhood friends and 1 is like someone new added to the fray, but kind of bouncing between their perspectives. And then you kind of get this love unrequited kind of thing going on too. Now, I didn't do quite the summary of the story, which basically follows our main character. I don't remember any of the names for this one, and I did not take notes, so we're gonna just breeze through this real quick. The main guy, he has like a little friend group, so it's him, a guy he grew up with, a girl he grew up with. He has played piano his whole life at the behest of his mother. His mother was apparently like a very talented pianist, but for some reason, maybe because she was sick or something, she kind of fell off or whatever. She didn't end up like pursuing or seeing the dream of becoming like a world-class pianist, right? So in turn, once her son showed any modicum of interest in playing the piano and that he was actually like pretty good at it, she pretty much decided that she was going to become like, you know, a tiger mom and like make him be the greatest pianist ever through brute force. And when I say brute force, I mean trigger warning. There's actually quite a few scenes of her like, you know, being very brutally abusive and like very, very controlling towards her son. And yet, like when she gets sick, you know, to the point where like, you know, it's clear she's gonna die from the sickness. And you see this through flashbacks throughout the course of the book. In fact, like it's pretty much stated at the very beginning that his mother is like dead or whatever. So when she gets like an incurable disease or whatever, he starts playing in all these different competitions and trying to win because he thinks that that's gonna make his mother feel better. Now, as for his friends or whatever, they're always like trying to encourage him to like come out and play from a very like young, you know, age or whatever. But his mom just won't allow it. She's like, you need to play the piano all of the time. Right? If you don't want to do it, I'm gonna beat it into you. So it's pretty brutal in some scenes or whatever, but they're always there to kind of support him and like build him up. And, you know, they're always there for him, and they are there for him after his mother dies. Now, after his mother dies, he has a strange relationship with the piano. He hates it and he loves it. You know, you get the sense that he hates it because of all the time he had to put into it, but also he hates it because his mom kind of forced him into it. However, it is almost alluded to the fact that that may not be the only reason why. And I did end up reading, you know, almost all of volume 2 as well. Well, not volume 2, but omnibus 2 as well, because like it leaves you kind of at a cliffhanger in volume 3, and I just needed to know what was going on. And I ended up reading a majority of it, so I do know a little bit of head. But yeah, he just has an interesting relationship with the piano. Now, right now he doesn't play it, and he's saying like, I can't hear the piano like when he's playing. Like he can feel himself touching the keys, but like he's just been psychologically broken to the point where he can't even hear the piano when he's playing it. Now, bring in this other new girl or whatever who's just like a ball of energy, you know, loves playing music. She's a violinist actually. And so she's actually into his friend, and he ends up being into her. They meet under kind of quirky circumstances. It's super weird. And through her encouragement, he kind of gets back into playing the piano, but it's not like any of the issues that he has goes away. And he doesn't necessarily have the joy in playing it quite yet. He's doing it like to help her out in some cases, like to kind of challenge himself in some cases, like, you know, but it's mostly because of her, right? And it creates this interesting like kind of love triangle dynamic where it's like very clear that he like has a thing for her, but like also very clear that she has a thing for his friend and his friend has a thing for her as well. But then also his female childhood friend clearly has a thing for him, and you kind of have that dynamic playing out. But like at the core of it, it really is about him kind of learning to let go of like the trauma that he had with his mom and finding his joy in playing the piano and a new reason to play the piano. And I think in that way, the story is very inspiring. With that said, I did kind of have some issues with the writing of this book. First of all, the pacing in the first book, there's a lot of like perspective bouncing. I don't think they do a great job of kind of laying the groundwork of who our characters are her in a very linear way. It kind of bounces around a lot between flashbacks and like, you know, the character itself. Also, our main character gets kind of assaulted by his friends and this girl a lot. Like, you see him kind of laid out a lot. He gets hit in the face with like baseballs and soccer balls, and he gets punched a few times, and you know, he gets disrespected a lot. My boy gets disrespected a whole lot. A lot of like physical violence that's used as comedy, which it works sometimes, but sometimes it's a little bit too much. Like, it's just like, tell the story that you want to tell, you know what I'm saying? Especially for something that's supposed to be kind of weighty. Now, another big issue I have with this is how they are so clearly telegraphing that, you know, this new girl has something going on with her and she's probably gonna die, right? I feel like it's not even a spoiler of me telling you this, like in this like analysis or whatever, because they make it clear, and when they do it, it's not even like very, in my opinion, very tactful. Like, it's so telegraphed that, you know, this girl is gonna die. And I feel like I don't think it would have, maybe it would have affected the story, but I don't think it would have affected the story too much if you just would have had her say that from the very beginning, that she doesn't have very much time left, right? In fact, it probably would have inspired our main character even more to get to his like end goal, knowing that he's so inspired by this girl and he's so infatuated with her. It probably would have like accelerated his desire to get to the end goal. I feel like a book that does this like really, really well is I Want to Eat Your Pancreas. They lay it out for you at the very beginning. This girl has a disease that she's gonna die from, and your expectation for that is already laid out, and you're really set up on the journey of like learning how these characters are gonna affect each other without this being in the back of your mind. And sometimes they bring it up to the forefront, but I feel like it allows you to enjoy the journey a whole lot more. Now, I'm not saying that they couldn't do this like illusionary thing better. They probably could have. I just did not like the way that it was executed, and it's not executed any better in the subsequent, you know, 3 volumes or whatever, at least in the 2.5 volumes that I've read ahead, and 4, 5, and 6. So I think that that could have been executed a little bit better. I'm not a writer, so I can't say how it could have been, but I just did not. I mean, there were times when I looked at it and I literally rolled my eyes because I feel like it's mentioned a couple of times. Now, I will give them a lot of credit that they don't overuse it. Like, it's not mentioned a whole lot. It just really evoked an eye roll from me. And maybe it's because I've seen it executed better elsewhere. Now, with that said, overall, this is shaping up to be a very interesting like redemption and adolescent growth story. And I think that it will in the end turn out to be a very, very good story. Even if it does have a few things that's holding it back, I think it just uses kind of an old style of manga writing, even though I don't think the story or the series is like that old, but it definitely uses like what feels like an older style of manga writing when it comes to this like romance slice of life, you know, music or whatever. It's kind of hitting on the tropes in a way that feels very traditional, but I don't think that's necessarily a terrible thing, and the writing could get a little bit tighter later on. But that said, I am going to continue reading this, and if I'm going to give it a rating, I would probably give it an 8 out of 10. I think it has a potential to reach some really high heights, but I think some of that like traditional storytelling, some of that telegraphing of like the illness and stuff like that really holds this series back. So we're going to see how it plays out. I would definitely say from what I've read of Omnibus 2 or volumes 4, 5, and 6, or how much of it I read, the storytelling is definitely a lot better in those. I mean, it still kind of leans on some of the physical kind of violent comedy that is in the previous volumes, but I think, you know, you get a much better sense of who these characters are. I think it's a bit more focused than these are. So I'm really excited to continue reading this. So anyway, 8 out of 10, definitely would still recommend it. Okay, so there you have it. Those are the 4 different titles I read, 3 volumes of each. So that's what, a 4x3, but basically 4x3. I don't know. Anyway, I would say of all the ones I read, Akane-Banashi probably stuck with me the most, followed by Nina the Starry Bride. Both of those are excellent stories. Both of them were 10 out of 10. Please Go Home, Miss Akutsu is just like a comfort read for me. I mean, it's not for everybody, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. And Your Lie in April, I think, has a ton of potential to be a really really good series, if not maybe great, depending on how the storytelling plays out. But I could definitely see why so many people enjoy this particular story. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please do all the YouTube things. Go ahead and click that like, subscribe, turn on the post notifications. I post a new video just about every week. Sometimes I'll take a week off, but for the most part, I post a new video every single week. I do, manga reviews, manga hauls. I do figure reviews, figure unboxings, like that kind of stuff. Also anime reviews, though those come few and far between these days because they just take so much time to make. But I do have one that I'm working on, which, speaking of which, roadmap, we have not had a chance, just schedule conflicting and just not having a whole lot of time to go and do the next like kind of manga / anime figure goods hunting video quite yet. That's probably going to get filmed now in March when we have some time. So we do have it on our calendars. It is going to happen. It is just taking longer because I know some of you are here for that particular aspect of the channel. So I want to let you know that I am going to feed it to you. Also, the anime review is coming out very soon. The script is done. I just need to take some time to read it and pull clips from the show. So that is coming very soon. Maybe in the next month or so, we'll have the next anime review. And I want to start carving out more time in my schedule to do more of that. Like I said in my last video, I just care a lot about how well it's written. And if I'm not able to really write it in a way that I feel good about it, then I'm not gonna put it out. So that's kind of like what we have coming down. Of course, our regular like manga reading that we're adding now, this is just the second episode, but I've really thoroughly enjoyed doing these and I definitely want to do more. Let me know down in the comments some books that you would like to hear my thoughts on, or maybe you want me to read. Like, I would love to get some of your feedback to talk about some things that you guys are passionate about. And I'm always looking for a new series to add to my shelves because we still have like some empty shelves to fill over here. So, we got space. We got space and time. So yeah, that's coming up. Anything you guys want to see me do, man, let me know down in the comments. I mean, I'm always looking for something interesting to do. Anyway, once again, thank you so much for watching. And as I always say, let's continue to talk about the things that we like, the things that we don't, and everything in between. And until next time, peace.